At the height of its offensive last year, Ukraine fired up to 7,000 artillery rounds a day, according to European Union estimates. Russian forces fired back up to 20,000 shells daily. As EU heads of state prepare for a Brussels summit Thursday, the bloc's foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, called for more military support.
Ukrainians need more ammunition. There is a big imbalance on the fire capacity from one side and the other, and this gap has to be filled. And this is why this council will take a quite dramatic dimension.
But the EU must first overcome internal splits. At the last Council summit in December, Hungary vetoed a 4-year, $54 billion aid package for Ukraine, arguing the money should not come from the bloc's budget.
That's essentially budget support that Ukraine needs to stay in the war and to stay solvent, but it doesn't aim to increase its military capacity. There is a separate budget line for that is also being held up by Hungary, and that will be discussed as well. And that is a 5 billion top-up to a common fund that the EU has to supply weapons to Ukraine.
Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has long been a thorn in the side of EU unity on Russia and has good relations with its president Vladimir Putin.
Hungary has refused to join sanctions at the beginning. Hungary has refused to send weapons to Ukraine. Hungary has refused to make Ukraine, to give Ukraine a candidate status for EU membership until it got the return that it wanted.
That return included releasing $11 billion of EU funds to Hungary that had been frozen over concerns about democratic backsliding in the country. The EU is still withholding a further $24 billion, and Orbán will likely demand that some of it is released.
That is a game that Viktor Orbán knows very well how to play, but it's also a game that both the EU and NATO has adapted by now. So I would be very surprised if this is not a stumbling block, which will be resolved, but it will be resolved with concessions towards Hungary.
Brussels has threatened to sabotage Hungary's economy unless it drops its veto of the Ukraine aid, according to a report in the London Financial Times. Budapest has accused the EU of blackmail. Meanwhile, European leaders are also set to discuss an EU naval mission to the Red Sea to protect commercial shipping from attacks by Houthi rebels in Yemen. Agriculture will also be on the agenda amid growing protests by farmers across Europe who complain that cheap imports are destroying their incomes. Henry Ridgwell, VOA News, London.